Hey everyone, this video is going to be about my awakening process. And, there's a lot of people on the planet, many masters, many enlightened beings that had one single event that changed them forever. They woke up, they just saw the light, or the light saw them. They saw themselves through the lens of awareness. And everything melted away, all pain, all suffering, and they never returned to that state. This was not my experience, and I think this is how most people's experience actually is a series of really significant events. So mine started in high school, and I wrote some timeline notes here I might check, but it really started in high school. I remember freshman year being shown by my older brother a documentary about 9/11 and about other conspiracy theories. And up to that point, I had this weird, unexplainable experience that I wouldn't share with anyone. And I would just keep it to myself. And it was, what the heck is going on here? I remember having that in even middle school, like having these strange moments and having these weird kind of memories that I couldn't put my finger on. And I just went, oh, it's probably just dreams or nightmares or something, whatever. And so anyway, when the conspiracy theories were shown to me, it started to validate at least the part of me that was questioning reality to not be as it seemed, right? I'm just this body, you're that body. We die, and then there's a soul, there's not a soul, good and bad, right or wrong. There's a path for me. I need to, go to school, get good grades, get a job. That's the way. And I'm just going, what? This is the strangest thing. So these conspiracy theories actually were very comforting, because I go, oh, I'm not alone. Maybe there is something strange going on. And what I realized is I started to become motivated by anger, and ultimately this served me really well. It didn't necessarily serve me the best in the moment, but I was so upset. I remember sitting there looking at the trade towers, the twin towers, and seeing people jump out of windows and going, what if that was my mom or dad? And according to these conspiracy theories, and according to everything that I'm seeing, it doesn't look like a theory, it looks like a fact that we did this to ourselves. And there was so much pain and anger in that moment. I was destined to try to change the world. I remember coming out, it was like 8th grade or freshman year, somewhere around there, coming out to my dad and going, I think our country is more corrupt than Iraq. And this is like when we were in Iraq. And he's like, well, then go live there. And I go, well, maybe I will. But besides that, I had a really great upbringing. Both my parents, extremely loving. They've been together for close to 40 years now. So that afforded me a lot of safety at home to go into a lot of these concepts and to have time and space for them. So I spent tons of time researching and looking at what out there, alternate forms of education, and ultimately it led me to personal development. There was no spirituality in my purview because of being raised in the church up to a young age and kind of rebelling against that. So I didn't want anything to do with spirituality, but personal growth, oh, sure. So ultimately, the anger was fueling this desire to figure out what was going on. And it was still focused on out there. I need to figure out how to change and fix and control what's out there. And I just keep suffering. And what does that do? I mean, I keep looking out there. Well, if out there is the change, then out there, changing things out there is going to make me feel good. So I want to become a ladies' man. I want to make my body really great so other people out there can love me and validate me. I want to, I did steroids and partied Friday, Saturday night just to find someone that would sleep with me, essentially, and spent years doing that, through high school, through college, and ultimately arrived at a place of a really deep depression. And I remember sitting in a classroom and having A's and F's, A's in the classes that I loved, F's in the classes that I hated, and just going, is this it for me? Is this where I'm going to figure it all out? And I went to apply to a job because I said, you know what, I really just need to start doing things that I love more. To say suicidal, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I definitely have had suicidal moments. I'm not going to go into it on this call or on this video. But I was just in an extreme low. And I started researching, okay, well, I want to do something I love, I lost sports, my love, and being heartbroken, and everything that I'm doing just seems to fail, and I'm not going anywhere. So what can I do that I love? And I applied to a gym, because really the gym was my church at that time. And I meet a mentor of mine named Graham Betchart, who just so happened to be the #1 sports psychologist in the world, who works with NBA players and college teams, and he's developed an app and an entire body of work. He's an incredible person. And he was writing his book. He was 7 years into a book. And he was the fitness manager. And I sat down, and within about an hour, the resonance, the connection, the synchronicity, this is meant to be, that feeling kind of took us both over. And he said to me, you're very special, and you're not going to be here long, and neither am I. We're going to do really big things. And I said, okay, because I had this revolutionary spirit about me of questioning, of wanting to create change, and so when I heard that, I go, yes, that's what I want. And he started giving me books. I remember around this time, maybe 5 or 6 years before that, this just popped in my mind. My older brother gave me a book by Deepak Chopra. I said, you have a headache, this can show you how to heal your own headache. And I popped in a tape and I listened to it, and I did it, and I healed my own headache. And it was these little breadcrumbs, that every single time there was an awakening. And so Graham would give me books. He'd give me things to research. He would teach me. He would just take me aside and teach me about psychology and understanding the mind and understanding what motivates people, how to speak to the hearts of people. And here's the interesting thing. That motivated me to start really diving into personal development. But I was developing a person in order to still gain happiness, safety, security, abundance, acknowledgement out there. So whereas I started focusing inward, my motivation was still outwardly driven. So eventually I found network marketing, and network marketing was essentially saying, hey, if you're in a job and you love personal growth, then I can give you something where there's no cap. And really the main thing that we do in network marketing is we just work on ourselves. And the team builds itself. That was the philosophy. So I went into network marketing, and I dropped out of everything else, school, and quit my job. And Graham and I remain friends. We're friends to this day. That was about probably maybe 20 years old, 21. And they just preached personal growth, personal development. And so I was given these books, and I just got obsessed, with wanting to figure out things in my mind, and suffering and all these things. And eventually it led me to spirituality, things like law of attraction, Esther Hicks, and these sort of areas. Still very outwardly focused. So I describe it as right when I started getting into personal development, I saw the first mountain. The first mountain was go climb the mountain of success. And you're going to work on yourself in order to achieve success. And so that's what I did. And I became this #1 income earner in a company and traveled the world, London, Thailand, Canada, all over the US. And eventually I got to a point where I felt the same emptiness that I felt in school. And let me see what I put up here. This was a realization that I had, was that the shadow work, because I started to kind of do shadow work, what people call that, questioning your mind, questioning the beliefs. The Buddha says the root of all suffering is attachment. I started to learn about detachment. I started to find Deepak Chopra's work and, works on spirituality. And so I started kind of doing this work and going, what am I believing about this? And just starting self-inquiry. but my motivation behind it was to achieve something in this world, something physically. So I realized that doing the work for any reason outside of the love of knowing yourself and the love of truth is just going to lead you in circles. So I knew all the stuff. I had all the wisdom. I had no compassion. I had no love. I mean, obviously I had love, but I didn't have the love in balance to the understanding that I thought I had. So I had this imbalance of I know it, but I don't feel it, and it makes me feel even worse. And I went on doing that for years, reading spiritual books, going to workshops, absorbing everything that I can, Bashar, tons of different material. And one day I had this moment in the back of a car while I was falling asleep where I received a symbol. I was dozing off, and all of a sudden this symbol just pops into my mind. And I've had some kind of mystical experiences up to that point, but that was one of the most definitive, obvious, boom. I couldn't have made that up. Whoa, what was that? Took me completely out of my sleep. And I actually have it on this crystal here. I'll show you the symbol. And that symbol energized me. I was like, I was filled up with energy, and I started getting all this information, and I went inside and I started writing, and I felt like this activation of sorts, and I'm writing. I write a 6-week course, and I go, wow. And this is a little after I started coaching, because I left the network marketing business and just started realizing what I really love is inspiring people, and I want to teach people everything I'm learning now about personal growth and spirituality. So I skipped some of that story, but you don't need to know that, because I'm really just focusing on these moments of awakening. So I got the symbol, I wrote this out, and I launched this course. Now, up to this point, all of my awakening experiences, I was making them mean I was special. And this actually created more suffering. So it's like, I got this symbol, and now, man, I'm really spiritual. Now I'm more enlightened, which really, I just started putting more expectations on myself. You can't be upset. You can't get angry. You can't get mad. You've had these special things happen to you. So you're special. And what that really means is I think I'm more valuable than others because I had special things happen. And what I didn't realize is the things that happen are special because they're unique, and no two experiences are identical. But that doesn't make me special. The experience is special, but I'm not special. But I didn't know that then. So I created this identity of specialness. I have something people don't. And so eventually, I'm going to check on this here. Eventually, the relationship that I'm in ended because all of my patterns, a lot of these negative patterns, you can call them wounded masculine or just self-sabotage, were still alive in me because of this specialness created that said I can't fully get vulnerable. I could do the work, I could do the shadow work, but not gonna do it for the sake of just being more open, being more loving, being more healing. But I'm gonna figure things out in my mind, right? It's all mental to achieve things. And so my relationship ends, and I remember sitting there alone in this apartment. My dog at the time was, I agreed to give the dog away. All of that was very painful. And I'm sitting there, and I just realized that I had no idea what I was doing, and that I needed some support. And so now fast forward, all these different teachers come into my life, and I end up being invited to a ceremony, a medicine ceremony, where we were ingesting a substance with DMT in it. And they called it ambrosia, and it was in this room of just all white. It was all white and crystals, and it was very Christ-like, and it was focused on the Christ teachings. And I drank this substance, and I was the only one that really had the experience that I had. I thought everyone was having my experience, but within 15 minutes, I was level 10. I was going through I went through these 7 different levels of consciousness is how I could describe it. I've done a whole video on this experience alone. But it brought me to what I described as the diamond heart of Christ, which the interesting part is every level that I went through, the intensity of the energy in the form of body heat, sweating, and in the form of tone, frequency that only I could hear, extremely loud, wee, and these beautiful complex patterns of just geometry and colors and light. And every single level, it felt like I was dying. So I was like, oh, here we go, here it is. Oh, it's peaking the energy. I'm gonna die, and I surrender. Because holding on just would not work. And I surrendered again, and I surrendered again. And the seventh one was the hardest to surrender to because it felt like I was on the surface of the sun. It was so hot. It literally felt like I was being burned alive. And I remember the medicine man comes over, puts his hand on my head, and starts creating this spiral of energy, and he had a crystal ring on, and then opened his hand, and I could feel and see all of this energy come out of me. I could actually even see him through my third eye walking over to me. It was such a unique experience. And I fall back, and as soon as he does that, I'm 100% sober. It's just, I'm done. It's done. I had what I needed. And I fell back, and I cried for about 6 hours. Why did I cry that long? Because it brought me to a place of no self, of going, I was completely gone. There was no I there. I was that energy. And every time I thought I was going to die, there I was, and there I was, and there I was. And it was so beautiful. It was so profoundly beautiful. Everything that I was looking for in life paled in comparison to that. It was laughable. I'd go, oh my God, I want a car. I want this. I want a relationship. All the things that I was seeking for. I want more sex, more money. All of those things. I was crying, but also laughing at how meaningless those things are. Not that they're not valuable, but how, is that really what I wanted? Or did I want this communion, this connection with God? And that was my experience. Whether you call it God or not doesn't really matter, because that's where I came to. And I realized that I didn't, and this is so key, I realized that I didn't want what I wanted, and I actually wanted what I didn't want. I didn't want what I wanted means all of the seeking to get things. What I didn't want, in my ego mind back then, was to fail, to just stop seeking, to stop trying to achieve. To the younger me, that would have been a death, because then, I have no value, I'm no one. And that's actually what I wanted, to be no one, to have no concept of self that could bind me, because any concept of self will bind us to an identity, to a box, and there's going to be suffering there. So I just experienced this no self, this complete open, who the hell am I? What the heck was that? And this profound love and connection that I feel is actually what I want. And this was like the second mountain. Now I remember after that week, I barely spoke a word, and I barely had a thought. It was just silence. It was just this silence. When someone said, "What happened in your ceremony?" I'd start crying. I cried for about a week. My physical appearance changed. I could show you pictures before or after. I actually, I went back to my apartment, and I look around and I go, whose apartment is this? Everything seemed foreign to me. Foreign in the sense of, this represents a version of me that no longer exists. I threw out almost all my clothes. I changed my decor. I changed everything in my life because my identity shifted. And not just from the medicine, but because of this concept that I finally understood in that moment. And this was right when I was met Ashley, my current partner, and she was even afraid. She goes, "Uh-oh, who are you? Who are you? Who are you now? Are you going to be too advanced for me?" And of course, it's very laughable now. But again, I still didn't completely integrate. I still didn't completely integrate this. It was a special experience, but it doesn't make me special. I still had this specialness, right? And so I still had this motivation to recreate that, to stay there. I want to stay here, which creates a future. And now I'm back in time, and I can't be experiencing time and experiencing the eternal now presence at the same time. So after a few weeks, ego kind of came back online, and even some of my old patterns kind of came back online. But there was a fundamental difference from that day. I had this underlying piece of, no matter what happens, I know I'm okay. I know I'm fine. I know what I am, but I still didn't do the deeper work on these concepts that would come back up and go, wait, am I that? Maybe I'm this. Maybe I need that. Maybe I need this from you. I still didn't kind of clean a lot of that out. But before I go into that, this is an interesting part. Two things. Number one, the shadow work started to be more oriented towards God, and this is like the second mountain. Now I want to know God. Now I want to know who I am, who and what I am. This was like a shift more into that. But there was still some value on it. There was value that said, when I know who I am, I'm more valuable. When I don't, so I'm still climbing this perceived mountain, creating this journey for myself. That's the second mountain. Spiritual seeking to gain something, to gain enlightenment. I wanted more knowledge. I found the Course in Miracles. I dove into Christ teachings. It sent me on a whole another journey of seeking. And seeking is great. We're always going to seek, but we can seek without suffering. And that's ultimately where we arrive. We will seek forever and infinitely, because God is infinite. But that could be really fun, inspiring, and beautiful process. So the shadow work again shifted to this new kind of intent. And even from this place, I started being able to see auras. I remember sitting down in the SRF, the Self-Realization Fellowship with Ashley. And I was so in love, and that's really what the key word here is, love. That experience, this is about a week or two after that experience, I was so in love with life, with Ashley, with myself, with everyone, with everything, that I'm sitting there watching this guy preach, and I just start seeing this glowing green light. And I'm looking and I'm going, is anyone else seeing this? This was the first time that I actually physically saw an aura. There was times before where I would see stuff online behind people, but actually in the physical, go, whoa. And I started to be able to control it, which was an interesting part. I could look to the left and read and find the light on the left, and then it wouldn't be as much on the right. And then I'd bring it up to the right and up and right. And it's like anywhere I looked, I could find color. And that happened on and off. I mean, I will still see them sometimes, not as much now, but I really started to see stuff and go, wow, this is different. And the downloads, I every time Ashley and I would have sex for the next maybe 3 months, I would get downloads, I would get numbers, I'd get equations. I'd go, oh my God, this number 12, and this is when the 13 came in, our core program now. I started learning about the 13, and I'd start to be able to actually see the structure of it kind of throughout the universe. Oh my God, the 12 aspects of the hero's journey, 12 and 12, 144, 144, 9, the end of a cycle. Everything would start linking together, and I would get downloads of how to create communities that fractal out in certain numbers that create balance. And I've never read this stuff anywhere. It was just coming in, and sometimes I would get symbols. And it was great because I would do these sessions with Bashar or other channels of the planet, and I'd find it and I'd get it confirmed, and I'd find it and I'd get it confirmed. And I still had that. I need to confirm my experience, But I started having these just all the time, just weekly downloads, or dreams. I remember I woke up one time and it was either Jesus or it was just a light being. I don't remember, and I was just given, it said, hey, here are the 6 aspects of a holy relationship, how to create a divine union. Here they are. And I wake up, I write them down. That started happening, same thing with the 13 crystal skulls. I would have visions and dreams. I really started opening up, and just receiving and receiving and receiving. And I had this symbol came back to me when I was in Ireland around this time. And that's what I did another automatic writing, and I had the 13 instead of the 6 originally, expanded to the 13. I remember having this experience when I remember I was getting a massage, and the 5 principles, these 5 laws that Bashar talks about, I started to be able to see these 5 laws. Existence is, you exist. The all is one, the one is all. What you put out is what you get back. Everything is here and now. The only constant is change. Which is really all just an extrapolation of this first one. Existence is all that is, which is synonymous with the all is one, the one is all. I mean, it's just this one spark that we look at like a crystal going like this. I started to be able to see it playing out in a blade of grass, and it's almost like I could see the hand of the creator going, oh, look, everything is the same one thing expressing itself in different ways. And it would, when I could see it for the first time, I had this like Satori experience where I was just completely connected to all that is during this massage. And I get up and I'm crying after, because I just can't hold it back. And I'm just looking at everything in awe going, wow, this is amazing. And I remember going home and just laying on the bed and staring at the ceiling and just for hours of just silence in awe of it all. And I went to sleep, and it was only a couple weeks later where I was researching Tesla and some of the numbers that he would work with and the 369 pattern, and something in me like understood what he was saying. And boom, I had this experience again of, I would look at a word, and the word, I would know within 3 seconds the number that word represented. And every word that I looked at would reduce to a 3, 6, or 9. Now, obviously, not every word does this, but just that synchronicity, the fact that I was studying 3, 6, and 9, and I'd look up and we'd have a poster or a picture with the word on it, 3, 6, 9, 9, 9, 3, 3, 3. And I just started seeing everything in numbers and kind of in code, almost like the Matrix. And I just connected to that unity feeling again. And it was like, my mind was blown, and I was crying. And I'm just in awe and reverence. And I walk outside and I look at the stars, because I just felt this call to go outside. And every time I'd take a breath in, the universe would come close to me, like, and I was sober. I wasn't on any substance. And I was breathing with the universe. And it was just this wild experience. And I go inside, I lay down, and I must stay there for just a couple of hours, just taking it in, and it was pretty amazing. And so this all led to this kind of final mountain, you could say, which is ultimately there were still some core concepts about myself that I was not looking at because of this pursuit to gain knowledge, understanding, enlightenment, whatever you want it to call. There was still an aspect of myself that I believed to be real, you could say, or I believe to be in need of something, lacking something. So, but I wasn't looking at it. And so what happened, I manifested, I created this experience of attracting to myself a supplement that turned my thyroid hormone production on level 10. Adrenaline, cortisol, all these things started pumping through my body much higher than normal. And I didn't know that this supplement was doing that. And so I started to not be able to sleep and not know why. And it got to the point where for about 2 weeks, I could only sleep 1 to 2 hours a night. Now, if you've done that only for a few days, you know that that's really intense and painful. This happened for almost 2 weeks. And close to that 2-week mark, I was probably about a week and a half in. I mean, I'm going crazy. I'm literally hallucinating. I'm suicidal. I'm thinking I'm going insane. I'm gonna need to be admitted to a nut house. I have to back away from all of my clients, and I'm so exhausted and I can't sleep. I mean, it was one of the hardest things I've ever experienced in my life. I'm in this altered state of no sleep, And one night I wake up and often I would just cry. I'd just sit there and I'd cry. And I woke up one night about 3 or 4 a.m. and I was just angry. Like, why the hell, God? Why is this happening? And I go into the living room and I find some marijuana, some weed that Ashley had. Ashley's like, you just telling everyone I'm smoking? And I'm like, it's okay. She doesn't smoke a lot, but if she did, that's great too. Not like it means anything anyway. So I found this weed, this marijuana, and I smoke it. But I'm so angry. I'm like, no, I'm going to smoke until I freaking pass out. So I'm smoking. I'm desperate just to get sleep. So I smoke 3 or 4 gigantic hits of marijuana. And I'm high as a kite. I'm more high than I was back in the day when I used to get really high, back in high school. Like, I am just beyond myself. And I go and I'm like, this will put me to sleep. I go, I lay down. It does the opposite. I start having a panic attack. And the panic attack was so severe because my adrenaline, my cortisol was already through the roof. So I'm pumping it probably at like 150% now. And it's so intense, my hands curl in, my feet curl up, I get cold, I get stiff, I get hard, and I'm shaking and I'm seizing. And I am freaking out. I'm going to die. And I'm actually thinking I'm going to die. And I'm telling Ashley, I need to go to the hospital. Do I need to go to the hospital? What's happening? And I am just in pure death, it felt like. I have this thought in the middle of this, and it goes, what are you trying to control? It says, can you control if you die? And I said, no. It said, in the sense of, do I know if I'm going to die in the next moment? No, how can I know that? How can this physical me know that? Do you know if this physical you is going to die in the next moment? No. Okay, so if you can't control, if you do die, you can't control it. If you don't die, you can't control it. Why are you trying to control it? It's pointless. And it just hit me in that moment. It's like, yeah, you're right. Maybe I do die. But I can't control that. Maybe I don't, and I can't control that. All right. And I started to see it without the story of this is going to lead me to death. And I just saw it as man shaking, chemicals in body, stiff Tyrannosaurus Rex arms. And without a story, I go, man, sometimes I look like this probably when I'm orgasming. So without a story, I just started to see it and observe it and watch it, and I just started to relax. And I laid my head on the pillow, and all of a sudden, boom, a picture in my mind of this supplement just appeared in my mind. Boom, there it is. That's the source. You've got the lesson. There you go. So I stopped using it, and it took me about 5 or 6 more days to come back to homeostasis. And on that probably 4th and 5th day, I found Byron Katie's work. And I was still, I was starting to get better, but I was still only getting 3, maybe 4 hours of sleep at night at most. And I still had more to integrate. I still had more to question. So I'm listening. I'm on a flight at this point. I was visiting my parents. And I'm so exhausted still. I'm still in so much, they call it sleep debt. My body is just exhausted. So I'm in this really altered state, still. And I'm listening to Byron Katie, and I'm listening to the book Loving What Is. And it's as if the state that I was in, I could just receive everything. It was just like it would come in, questioning my beliefs, and I'd have beliefs come up, and it's like she was just talking to me, talking to those beliefs, and they just fall away, and I'd have some sort of release. The release maybe looked like that. Maybe it looked like crying. But I listened 8 or 9 hours of this book just straight in my travels. And I'm just having layers and layers because I'm just questioning these 8 or 9 hours, everything that was causing me pain over the last, year and more recently. And I'm just, I'm doing the 4 questions and I'm doing the work. And it's like I just went through this like accelerator of I'm going to look at everything right now. And now I really feel like I have no other choice. And so much so that I started to feel this peace that I've never felt before. I started to laugh at the version of myself, the concept of myself, the thought of myself that wanted to gain enlightenment, that wanted to become successful. And it was started to become hilarious to me. That wanted his partner to understand him, that wanted his partner to also be enlightened, and I'm having these release in the forms of laughter of going, wow, I actually thought that I wanted that. And again, I realized I didn't want what I wanted over and over and over until I wanted nothing. Until I go, what do I want then? And it was like, I want to find why I think I want anything beyond what is, beyond what is here now. And that, paradoxically means if I find myself wanting something, I want to have that experience too. But there's no longer a meaning to it. There's no longer an attachment that turns it into a needing. And usually from there, then the wanting doesn't even really show up. So I remember being in this just beautiful, expanded state of life is meaningless. And it's like I've known that forever, but I was experiencing it. And everything I started to look at became alive and lit up. And it was like, wow, what is this without definitions and words? I don't know what this is. And I don't know if I don't know who I am, because that's what happened when I started to get to the root of my motivations, going, well, if I am motivated to get this, that must be because I think I'm this. I think I'm this person that can actually become something, that can actually gain something, that can be more successful than I am. So to really get to the core of the motivations, you start to get to the core of the self. And so I started questioning the self. Well, who am I? What am I? And through just the questioning, really nothing would show up. No, nothing. There was nothing. It was like my body, no. My this, no. And nothing could hold. And once there was nothing, and I didn't experience it in this moment, but like a week later, I was doing this again. And because I couldn't find nothing, I actually had a really deep fear come up of like, oh my God, I don't know. And this fear came up. And that was like this final surrender. I'm like deep fear, like deep in my body. It was like, oh my God, I don't know. Oh my God, what does that mean? And like any thought that come up, it would be like, is it true? Is it true? Is it true? And it would be like, no. And then it was like, oh, I don't know. And that was, the third mountain appeared. It was like, I don't want to know. I don't want any of those things. I want to not know anything and then be open to everything, And I remember Ashley giving me this juice. We were driving home from the airport and I'm just in this state and she's looking at me like, what the heck is going on? I'm just, I don't know. And it's like, it's very similar to Byron Katie. Man, it's a really nice day. It's really great. This is great. And I'm looking at all of these things going, what, look at these stories of mind. That's all they are. This world is just a place that we can paint with our mind. And I'm just watching someone paint. And that's what it felt like. And, but I felt more connected to them. I felt like, oh yeah, I do those same things. I paint all the time. But now I could watch the painting and go and just have this degree of almost like humor with life, this lightheartedness of it all. So she hands me this juice and she goes, here, I got you celery juice. It's like, oh wow, thank you. And And, even realizing that I've only really dealt with myself and my relationship. It's like, who is she to me? The stories that I create about her in my mind. And so even that was this deep moment of realization and connection and humor of like, you're literally me. You're in my mind. You're a projection of my mind. And now you're giving this to me. My mind giving something to itself. Wow. That's like, if that's not love in action, if that's not, telling you everything about the nature of the universe, God loves itself so much it gives to itself over and over and over. Wow. So I'm looking at this celery juice and I look at it and I go, I don't know what this is. And she goes, it's celery juice. And all of this happened mentally in like an instant. I was going, but what's that, And can I know that that's true? Can I know that this is celery juice? What is celery? What actually is it? And what comes before that? And what comes before it? And what comes before it? And it just goes all the way back to nothingness, to the Big Bang, to some mystery. And I'm looking at it in complete awe and mystery. And, 5 minutes goes by and Ashley goes, are you okay? What's going on? And I could have just sat there. And I am just like within having this like deep laugh that I'm not really expressing, but just this deep wow. And I drink it and it's like an orgasm. And if you drink celery juice, it's not the tastiest stuff, but it was like, that's this, giving me a hint of what it is. And I can't even know that. And it's just, wow. So that was the beginning really of the third mountain, which was, I don't know, what I think I know, most of it just ain't so, especially if it causes me suffering. So then that led me to a journey of loving what is. So now it's like, why? The shadow work was shadow work in order to gain something out there, success, achievement. Then it was shadow work and questioning and self-inquiry and working on myself to gain enlightenment, gaining knowledge, reading, listening, wanting to have more spiritual experiences, having them. And then it was like all of those things were only, they were an illusion. It was like this illusion of self was chasing something to become more of itself, and that was the very thing keeping itself away from itself. And it's just this laughable circle you watch. It's like, what would happen if that version of me did get the enlightenment? Then what? You go, oh, well, then I'd have peace and joy and this and that. And it's like, is it true? Is that true? And how could I actually get that from something? I would probably, the only way that I could get that is if I told the story. Oh, now that I'm here and I call this thing enlightenment, which as soon as I define it, it's not enlightenment. Then I go, okay, now that I'm here, I'm going to tell myself I could be peaceful now. So, it's like Byron Katie says, skip the middleman. Just give it to yourself now. What's in the way of it now? So that third mountain was, instead of how much I need to climb the mountain, it's like, what do I need to let go of to realize there's no mountain? Like all of these mountains don't exist. What do I need to let go of? And the funny part is even that is not true, in the sense of I need to sit here and figure out what I need to let go of. Because the moment I identify, this is what I need to let go of, it's gone. The moment is past unless I hold on to it. So it's more like it's going to let me go when I stop attaching to it, when I see it as no longer meaningful or valuable. So that was, I don't know, in 2000, I think 2020, that third mountain kind of awareness, that's when it was actually embodied. It was like the last years since ever since I was 19, you could ask me about these things. I could say the same things to you. But only now does my life dramatically look different. the things that I value dramatically different. And yeah, so that's a bit of my journey. And it's like, I'd say since that awakening and the plane ride and that questioning, I haven't had a bad day. And it's because number one, what's a day? What's a bad day? What does that mean? The moment that you can accept having a bad day, oh, it's okay if I have a bad day, it's not a bad day anymore. Because acceptance is love. Being in love with a bad day is what makes it a good day. So these things, they just don't make any sense. It's like we're told, like, oh, a bad day is just a thing that happens. Yeah, well then where is it located? Well, it has to be happening in your mind. That's creating the emotions, that's creating the chemicals, that's creating the suffering. Because what physically looks like a bad day to you could be the best day for someone else. What's the difference? So, ultimately, it's like where I was at in the beginning, using all the logic, but no love, no compassion, or not a lot of compassion and like true deep inquiry and feeling and releasing. You kind of go full circle to where it's like, now, because I have no resistance to the feeling, to an experiencing what non-enlightenment is, that my arms are wide open to it, I go, okay, then here you are. And that, paradoxically, those things don't need to show up as much because your arms are wide open to them, because you know who you are. So in my experience, every experience is like God giving you an opportunity to know who you are and to draw a larger circle. It's like most of us think we're this little circle. We have an experience where there's suffering, means my identity is threatened. That means there's a miracle ready to emerge, which is a shift in perception for me to draw a larger circle. And we're going to be drawing larger and larger circles, and there's the spiral for who knows how long. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Share it if you feel inspired to, and I will see you guys on the inside, wherever that may be.